Sure, your schedule's like everybody else's, most of the time out of control, but
Fill your pond, you're happy with that arrangement. So that's, they're trying to give people make it easy for the individual to have a pond, or a developer to put 200 homes on the south side of West Cliff. He doesn't have to buy water from Round Mountain or water taps.
or doesn't have to abide by Senate Bill 35.
Yeah, well, it's abiding by it, it's just doing what's allowed, applying for augmentation.
So, of course, it's all supposition from these three chairs of why Upper Ark wants to do this. Because they won't say.
No, I'm assuming, the best answer is they tax here, and so they try to provide a service, for
We pay
for
a
the
half
tax
a
money.
mil now, is what it is, and they're allowed up to 2, from what I understand.
So they're trying, the good answer is they're trying to provide a service for the taxation they have up here. The bad answer is maybe they want some revenue. I don't know. I don't know what their budget
That's a
is.
question we need to ask them.
And I mentioned that at their Upper Ark meeting, on the agenda, is why do you want to do this? How is this going to help Custer County? Why would the residents of Custer County, the citizenry, support this? We didn't get an answer, didn't expect to, because I asked them about 10 questions in 5 minutes. But the question still, I think, begs to be answered is why? Now, if they say we want to help you, I have a hard time buying what that means.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I can only suppose the answer to that question.
Right, that's what I say. It's kind of
I don't know
supposition.
the answer, but I assume the correct answer is service for the taxes they collect here. And that service is just providing people with options to augment, developments, whether it's a pond or a mobile home court.
Or a ranch.
Well, and I don't buy the Ora Ranch because the economics isn't there. There's no way they can
Well, but
spend
that
that
doesn't
kind of
mean that you
money.
couldn't do it.
Oh, I'm not saying
That's my
you
point.
legally couldn't do it. I'm just saying,
You can
reality-
do it, but economically, it's pretty expensive to augment a pond.
Right.
If you start to get in a 1 acre pond, that's 3 acre feet of,
yeah,
2 or 3 acre feet of loss per year.
$250,000.
And what was their price?
Yeah,
So,
$240,000.
$30,000 or
So,
whatever.
but you can augment in-house use on residence or a mobile home court. What do I say about maybe 50 homes per acre foot of consumption?
right, because what do they figure, 132,000 gallons a year? I don't know.
It's about 100, they figure about 3.5 people per residence, about 80 gallons per day per person. That's 100,000 gallons a year of diversions. You're charged on a septic system for 10% depletion, so it's 10,000 gallons of consumption, which is, there's 325,000 gallons in an acre foot,
Right.
so it's like a 30th. So you can do
Right.
30 homes
Roughly.
on your 1 acre foot of consumption.
Right.
So 8,000 times 10 is $80,000 for water for 30 homes. That's not bad.
Yeah, it would be a great deal for the person who owns, let's say,
Develops.
that's right. Or as a homeowner now, do I go buy the augmented water, or does the developer would have to buy the augmented water before he ever subdivided, correct? I mean, typically, this,
Yeah, you're not gonna let them subdivide
Right,
without a
without
plan
the
for
water.
augmentation.
Exactly.
So he needs to get
Right.
the water, he needs to go through
That's under
court.
our zoning and
Right.
our.
Yeah,
so as an end consumer, I'm gonna pay that 8,000 for this augmented water, but I'd probably pay that through the price of the land, it's built.
sure. Your developer, if Upper Ark comes up here and some developer wants to put in a subdivision south of town here, within that blue line, he's gonna say, okay, I can create 50 lots, I need X amount of dollars per lot to pay for the water, X amount to pay for the land I bought, X amount to pay for development, the roads and utilities, and then then here's my profit, and then here's my lot
And
price.
then, now that's your lot price,
Yeah.
but it obviously includes all of that,
Yeah.
including augmented water.
Yeah, because he has to have all that in place before
Right.
you guys
We
are
would
gonna let
ever-
him through.
Right.
And then they pay a monthly fee of some kind.
Well, if they have their own well, they're just paying electricity.
Right.
Right.
Um,
If they didn't, I mean, that could be something that could happen in the future. You could charge for them.
Upper Ark charges an annual
Consumptive,
fee,
that's
you
right,
know, for its
consumptive
members.
use.
So that aug plan would be a member.
Right.
Right.
So they're paying some admin.
The developer would pay that, but he's not gonna take it out of his own pocket, he'll
No.
pass that on. Evap loss on a domestic in-house, is there any figured in it?
No.
Okay, 'cause in my thinking, there shouldn't be, if it's in-house only and they're really,
There
In
would,
compliance.
there would be if your method of treatment wasn't like an open lagoon, but
Okay.
those well permits will say a non-evaporative septic
I was
system.
gonna say, let's assume
Back
there's a
in the
septic
ground,
system
yeah.
tied to that.
Yeah,
That water never really gets to the atmosphere.
yeah, it doesn't get consumed theoretically by plants, although it's always a little greener over the septic tank.
Yeah, true, true. Then that's water uptake, that's not evap though,
Yeah.
technically, right? I
Evaporative
mean,
transpiration
Yeah.
technically, but they say a non-evaporative method of treatment.
Right.
So, and I don't think you guys allow open lagoons anywhere,
No.
anyway.
And you got one.
Upper Ark, I mean, Brown Mountain,
Mountain,
yeah. So, I know I'm asking you questions that you probably can't really answer, but the manager of Round Mountain sent me a text and said that they're opposing this plan, which in a way kind of surprised me, because I figured surely Round Mountain would look at that and say, there's our opportunity to have more water later on.
You could look at it that way, it could be a backup supply. Round Mountain does, have its supply wells right over here.
Right.
And when their Macy Creek, Johnson Place water is not available from upstream during the summer to augment their depletion up here, they have to exchange from Deweese up. Well, if Upper Ark is also trying to exchange from Deweese up and then up Taylor Creek, Round Mountain probably wants to protect its more senior exchange rate. There's a couple intervening ditches on Great Creek that probably want to make sure they're protected on that exchange up to Taylor Creek. So there's justifiable reasons around Mountain.
Okay, and they may want, for the same reason we did, oppose it so we can be,
Understand it.
Knowledgeable.
so we
see
can have
what's going on.
access to the documentation. I don't know, he didn't say why, but
Yeah.
is, in your opinion, anybody outside of that blue line, should they be concerned about this or not?
Water, they would.
There are some reasons, like there are certain things in this application that I know aren't gonna fly with some entities on the Arkansas. There are factors and parameters and dimension of east slope Twin Lakes water rights, things that have changed in the last 20-some years that, so you may get a city of Aurora opposing this, I'm sure you will, or you'll see that. So there's going to be opposition for reasons like that. For your local water rights, if you're inside that red line, you might have reason to be
Yeah.
concerned. If you're outside,
That's the question I've been getting, is
less likely, there may be reasons though.
down in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not gonna get injured.
No, if the only reason is if Upper Ark's actions created some sort of increased call from down below. Maybe you have a water right that's outside of that red line there, but you're subject to calls from downstream. Maybe there's some downstream seniors. If Upper Ark does something that makes those seniors call more than they historically did, then you're gonna feel it. It's kind of a rebound call, they call it. If things are done right, that should not occur. But sometimes there's unanticipated consequences and you do see that rebound effect on somebody unrelated. They're all of a sudden they say, hey, wait, Joe downstream, senior to me, has never called me before. Now he's calling me. Why is he doing that? well, maybe Upper Ark did something that affects him.
Would it be fair to say that if somebody's sweeping a ditch, they're probably not fulfilling their full right?
If somebody's, yeah, if they're the calling right, they're
Right, and
sweeping,
they're
physically
it.
sweeping
That
the
doesn't
street.
mean they're getting everything they're entitled to.
Thank you.
Taking,
Sorry.
taking all the water available in the creek, so nothing goes by your diversion dam. The creek is dry.
Dry below you, and
Okay.
they've got enough water
Yeah.
to drain it. I mean, he's gotta have a big enough water.
Maybe there's only enough water with the ditches above you that the water commissioner can only satisfy half your water right, and he says, there it is, take it all. Sometimes the calling right is not satisfied, but there's seniors below him, so he has to pass water to them.
That's it.
You'll see in that Upper Ark terms that the controlling right. You'll see that term in here. They'll say it's the controlling right.
Forces you to let the water go by you even though you have
Yeah.
it right.
Yeah, so
Somebody's
it's,
more senior below you.
controlling right may be the one sweeping the creek, physically taking what's left, or it may be the most junior getting some water. Its right's not fully satisfied, but it also is obligated to pass some to downstream relatively more senior rights. So in either case, they describe that as the controlling water right.
Water rights are tied to the land, ag water.
Surface water
Surface.
rights, yeah, they're decreed to a particular parcel of land up here.
We can't just arbitrarily say, I'm gonna quit irrigating this 40-acre patch, and I'm gonna run that water over here and irrigate this 40-acre patch, because I think the hay's gonna do better over there.
Only if it's within your decree. Yeah.
Initially, I was told that only water right holders could file letters of opposition. I've since learned that's not the case. Anybody can file.
Legally, ultimately, you need standing in court to oppose. Don't take this to the bank, but eventually you need a water right that is going to be injured to carry through your opposition all the way, say if this case went to a trial. The last I knew,
Could be a well.
it very well could be, if you have a water right decree for your well, you're fine. The only wrinkle to that I'm aware of is that if you make application to court, say you had an exempt well, you don't have a water right, you just have this permit, and you say, I want to oppose Upper Ark, and tomorrow you go, I'm going to file for a water right for my exempt well, even though you don't yet have your decree, it may take 5 months to go through the court process, you now have standing, is what the court
Got it.
previously
Potential.
determined. But ultimately, I think if you can't show injury to a water right, ultimately, the judge isn't going to listen to you.
And Upper Ark was clear to point out to us, the three of us sat in on their January meeting, and they clearly said, county commissioners deal with land use. You don't have anything to say about water use. That's a state or / conservancy district thing. I believe that.
It's almost true.
So, my opinion is, I don't think the commissioners can get to a position where they can have a stand
In water court?
in water court.
Yeah. I think your leverage is
Representing the
political.
people that do.
Your leverage is political. I'll back up. There's a couple things I'd have to go look at the statutes, but there's a couple things you will see counties get into water court cases for and be successful. One is the requirement for revegetation. It's not as much of a concern up here where you get a little more rainfall, but back east or down east, say Rocky Ford, somebody will dry up a ditch and what used to be corn or irrigated hay, once they take away their irrigation water, you get weeds. And that can then become a burden for the county
Yep.
or the neighboring landowners. All of a sudden, they have a cost burden they didn't have before. And so counties successfully in those areas get provisions in these decrees that require revegetation, back to a native plant, self-sustaining native plant, and not weeds. And that takes years.
Yeah.
Aurora is still working on Rocky Ford land that was decreed 1990, a change case. The other thing that's in statute that is can come into play, and again, you'd have to go ask your attorney, but is the, I don't even know what to call it, but the economic offset. So if you take the tax base of irrigated land and somebody dries it up, the tax base on dry land is less, and so
H2O is probably a good example.
yeah, and so I know, and again, pointing to that Rocky Ford case, Aurora's on the hook for, I think, 99 years of paying the difference in the taxes between dry land and irrigated land. So it helps insulate the county. It doesn't fully do it. I mean, the guy that farmed that doesn't buy a tractor anymore. He maybe doesn't shop at the grocery store there anymore, you know. So those are the weeds and tax issues, and there's some statutes that go along with that.
I would guess that those probably are going to be kind of a far reach up here.
Yeah, as far as revegetation, in this case, Upper Ark is not seeking to dry anything new. They did dry up some of that Katzenstein land in an earlier case. And they're not shrinking your tax base. They're probably going to enlarge it by development.
Right. And this is one of the reasons I say that is, let's take Katzenstein, number one, for example. They dry up that land. I would guess most of the time on a normal year, you couldn't drive a vehicle across that land after it was dried up because it's all sub-irrigated.
Yeah. They shouldn't have got much credit for that.
Yeah, and of course Upper Ark will say, now look, let's jump back now to H2O Ranch. Well, they wanted 800 acre feet. We got them down, going through court, down to less than 200 acre feet. I'm assuming they were arguing consumptive use, is how they got that. So we saved 600 acre feet of water from going out of the valley. On paper, you can't argue that.
They weren't the only ones arguing that, though. The state was in that, too,
Right.
all the way to the Supreme Court.
And so because that's so heavily sub-irrigated up around Conquistador 1 and 2 and that supposedly dried up land.
Yeah. They really can't make that legitimately same argument in their case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't dry that land up physically. I mean, you could shut off every ditch you want and still put up hay on that ground below the ski area, or below the pond, even above the ponds. So I just struggle with that whole idea of,
Oh, no, is that a copy of the plan right in front of you, that big?
This is a copy of their current application.
Oh, okay, that describes everything. Can I make a copy of all
It's
that?
online on their
All
website.
right.
yeah,
I was
Custer County
I was
Gov.
just gonna give it my water turn too.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, yeah, have them pull it up off of the
right.
website.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened last time, but I think it was the objection of the county commissioners that stopped it. And, you know, you have that, and you have your two representatives here for Custer County that are on that board. They're appointed by the district court. I don't know what you do there. Maybe you write a letter to the court and say, we don't want these guys anymore. Or next time they come up, or, you know, I
Which
don't.
one does in May,
Yeah.
and that
So-
conversation's being had, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what you guys are gonna do.
Now, does Schwartz appoint that position? Is it from,
It's the
District
local
court.
district court. I think it would be,
I don't know who these.
I think, are you guys still with Fremont County? But there's it's either here or Fremont County for those guys, and then Chaffey County District Court's gonna do the Salida guys.
so it must be Fremont County?
Yeah, I know down in Trinidad, it's the Los Animas District Court that appoints my 9 board members. It's not Schwartz, it's not Pueblo.
One of those 2 members term expires May 31st this year. So,
Who's that, Mr. Plum?
Sinderhoff, his term ends this year, 2019.
You know, if you guys were to say things like that, write things like that, get things like that in the paper, that's your leverage, I believe. Water right injury, what water rights does the county have?
Yeah, none.
Well, there's a few hundred ranchers who do, right, would be hurt,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, but again, to get standing, there's a difference between filing opposition and get standing in the court. They're gonna have to demonstrate potential injury to a water right to get standing in that court.
Ultimately, I mean, the court will accept a statement of opposition from you, but eventually,
Right.
push is gonna come to shove,
Right.
and the judge is gonna get asked, how are your water rights being hurt?
Right. And if we say, well, we don't own any water rights,
They
then
just don't like this.
nice to have you here today.
Yeah.
That doesn't depend on the ranchers to do their own homework. And
Yeah.
hire an engineer and say, this is how you're losing this much, and this, if they're gonna go through with this, and we'll get 300 of us to do that, and then the judge.
Well, I think so. The other thing is, back to those individual well permittees. I'm one. I've got a well,
Mhm.
permitted by the state.
Mhm.
It's not an in-house only.
Mhm.
What's the chances of me realistically proving potential injury to that well?
It's not a
With this
water
on
right.
land. It's not a water right, it's just a permitted
You could
well.
make it, you could get a water right for it. Well, virtually impossible.
Okay.
But how
That's
is
what I
that? Because
thought.
any amount of water that comes out of this valley affects the water table, saturation. And that means in 5 years, he's gonna have to rebuild another 100 feet or whatever. you
And
know?
that's not necessarily injury. A decrease in hydrostatic pressure is not necessarily injury. You know, for example, if his well was 10 feet deep,
Right.
does that mean nobody else could put a well in deeper
Deeper
than
than
10
that.
feet because it might dry up his well? Could he control economic development just because he decided to drill a really shallow well? So,
Courts would never allow that.
no,
Yeah.
the common sense and the law wouldn't allow
But
that.
that's what we hear a lot is, wait a minute, you start punching holes up in this dry land, let's say there's 600
Mhm.
5-acre tracts. People over here will swear up and down that that's gonna injure their wells.
It does, yeah.
I don't see how it could because this valley does this.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the valley here.
So we're
Yeah.
upstream of that, really, we're upstream of
I
Great
think
Creek,
up at my
right?
ranch, all the new people that have moved in and built houses, and I have 7 springs throughout the school section we've leased for 55 years, and a couple other on our ranch, and they're dry now. I've got 2 left.
And I would guess the court would say,
I think that's damage.
that's a bad deal, but it could be environmental, we didn't get a lot of water.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what you're gonna have to prove. You're gonna have to prove well-to-well injury or well-to-spring injury. And, you know, if you're sitting up above some future development and they start sucking a lot of groundwater, it may drop your water table and you may have to drill a well, re-drill your well. And, you know, and maybe that's, you're probably not gonna get that in there, but it's something maybe the county can say, you know, we're really gonna look at closely at any approval, any new subdivisions and augmented water use in this valley. And maybe you guys come up with some subdivision rules that encompass some of those aspects. Gets complicated.
Yes, it does. Why do you suppose the majority of the aug plan is east of the major drainage point in this valley, which is Great Creek?
Well, there's no wells or no ditches to the east.
Right, there's really no water sources up here.
Yeah, and so there's nothing to injure as far as
Okay.
like ditches or reservoirs. You
And
know, that's what's pinning them down on the west side is they go up to, where's that map? Yeah, you know, they go up to these ditches on the west
Right.
side. There are no ditches on the
Right.
east side, so that's territory
Well,
they can
that's
get.
up for grabs.
Yeah.
And is then, to follow that line of thinking, then is, if I'm selling water, I want to sell water where there isn't any, basically.
Well, you
That's where the
want,
demand's gonna be, huh?
if you were a developer, that's cheaper land on the east side. It's just
Zone
dry,
different.
dry land over there. You can,
Did drill deep.
yeah, whether there's groundwater or not, that's something a developer has to look into. That's a physical problem.
Right.
But,
So this part of the valley's zoned 80 acres. This is not. I'd have to look. I think it's 10s. But the only reason for that is really driven by the number of wells. I mean, it's tied to whether I can drill a well in it or not. But if I can augment up here, then that changes, huh? I can circumvent that SB 35.
you could have quarter-acre lots up there with a well and, it wouldn't work for your septic tanks, but,
Right.
you know, theoretically, you could have a very dense development as long as you could physically supply them with water from
There's
wells.
water in the well.
So I'm just trying to solidify what I think could happen.
That-
Upper Ark owns 100 acre feet of water in Conquistador 1 and 2. If they sell it by the tenth of an acre foot, that's 1,000 tenths that they could augment 1,000 wells with.
Yeah.
If they so choose to do that. Is that?
What did we say, 30 homes for an acre foot, roughly?
Yeah,
So 100 times 30 is
3,000,
3,000.
yeah.
And that's under septics.
No,
If-
100 times 30,
If you
3,000.
if you had them put a pipeline to the treatment in town here, you could double that
Right.
number.
But I'm assuming, when I say wells, I'm assuming also tied to that is a septic.
Yeah, okay. So
Now-
say 3,000 right there.
So 600 feet between two wells, can't have wells any closer than 600 feet?
No, the developer can exempt themselves from that if it's common ownership.
Okay,
Yes.
wow.
Just between two lots, you mean?
Just means you gotta have enough water.
Yes,
Around.
yeah, to support the development.
It would be too risky if they, they
You know,
would set
that-
that based
yeah.
upon what they thought the risk of not being able to get water, because you don't wanna sell a guy a lot without water.
Yeah, so some guy from California buys one of these 10 acres, he drills 1,000 feet, he gets no water, he's gonna sue the developer,
Right.
and he's gonna sue you guys.
So he's gonna spec the distance between houses.
Yeah, and that's what people get worked up about. They say, you can augment all the water you want to Grape Creek, it ain't gonna change a damn thing up here on this dry ground. There's only gonna be so much water that can
Physically
hit.
water.
with a
Physically,
well.
there's only
Yeah.
so much
Now, I can,
water.
Upper Ark can say, well, I'm gonna augment that, so you go ahead and drill those wells. It doesn't mean anything, they're not gonna augment the water to the well site.
It just means legally they can drill the wells.
Right.
And
There's
if
no
they happen to
guarantee.
find water, they can use it.
Practically,
Right.
or not.
But no guarantees, I mean.
Developer ain't gonna wanna sell a pig in a poke either.
No, and you guys probably don't want to approve such a.
That's right, and that's what would happen.
But,
But as long as the state keeps permitting wells on a 35 acre basis, then people would say, well, there's gotta be water there, or the state wouldn't be permitting these wells.
Not
But there's a big
necessarily.
difference between 35 acres
Yeah.
and quarter acre
yeah,
tracts, or
it's-
1 acre
it's-
tracts.
You know, it's a general statute that and they did that on purpose, they didn't want a lot of density. It was, when they did that, it was more for rural areas, and you had a farmhouse, you could
There's
have your
still,
well.
there's still areas in the state that have no water on a 30.
Oh, yeah, physically, there's just
nothing under it,
simply no water down there.
but they're still allowed to drill wells.
You still have the
Waste your
right to
money.
drill that well.
And you probably know the hydrologic formation of this valley. If they drill deep enough over here on this dry land, I'm convinced they will hit water. Now, I don't know about up in the East Hills
Yeah, you may
necessarily,
not want to drink it, though.
but over here,
That's true.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, see, people are upset because they say, well, Upper Ark is gonna augment those wells, that's the supposition. But they keep saying they're gonna augment it by dumping that water into Grape Creek, which is below all that dry land country.
And that's
And that
That's
gets people in a
simply and
fight.
purely a water rights analysis. I mean, that horizontal red line on the bottom of the picture is where they hit a water right going up creek Grape Creek, and that
that
one water right
stopped.
stopped them.
Yeah.
Or they would keep going.
And somebody asked me, why is that line so convoluted? And I said, because they were hitting point of diversions on some
You mean
ditch.
right,
There, that west side line,
Oh, right here.
that's hitting water rights and it's following contours,
okay.
hydrologic,
Oh, line, yeah.
well, surface contours, assumed to be hydrologic
Right.
contours.
Right. Which brings me back to a point, when you say somebody's gonna have to prove potential injury, does that mean they're gonna have to probably hire an engineer and a water attorney?
It depends on the issue. The issue may be pretty clear. You know, maybe somebody has a water right that's within that red line and Upper Ark just missed it. Or maybe Upper Ark thought, well, shoot, it's such a junior right, if it's in priority to get water, there's more than enough water for everybody. You know, issues like that.
Well, Upper Ark has said, a couple of their board members said to us in a board meeting at Upper Ark, long-term board members, 15 years, 14 years on the board, if anybody can demonstrate true potential injury to this water aug plan application, he said, I will be the first to make the motion to withdraw it.
Or they would just amend it and redraw the red line
Redraw
a
the
little
line.
to take care of that
Right.
problem.
So my point is, I think Upper Ark truly believes that this plan is not going to injure
Water rights.
water rights.
And you
Water
guys,
right
you
holder.
guys think,
They know better.
you know, you guys have more to think about than just water rights.
Because it is going to open the
gonna open the
potential
floodgate.
floodgate of development. There's no
Well,
question.
And Mr.
and we
Fromm,
have
like,
a-
I've watched my dad, he knew everything about water. I just wish he was alive and right here. I think he'd make the decision for all you guys, and he always, I watched him even, and this, I think, is a step, like, and then 3 more steps down the road is where it's really, some augmentation plan's gonna pop up based on this stuff, and that's what's really gonna hurt.
Right.
The valley, like, you gotta kinda dig the hills in now, put a stop to
Right.
it.
Yeah, there's a certain attitude of this is step one of finally getting an aug plan for the entire
I
county.
know that, I guarantee that's how, yeah, I mean.
Time will tell.
I always enjoyed coming up here for field work because water right wise, this was like going back in time to come here to Custer County. Sort of the same on the upper Arkansas, but once you get east of Canyon, it's a whole different world. Water rights have been changed once, twice, more times. You know, there's speculation, there's prices are high, things are going on. All sorts of weird decrees are 3/4 of an inch thick, you can't even understand them. But you come up here,
Still
from
pretty
1896
pure.
to now, not a lot of changes. You know,
Right.
this H2O was the first extra territorial thing other than the original Deweese changes, which changed them right to Lower Grape Creek and brought them down to Canyon City. Other than that, not much has changed up here. So you guys are on the precipice of,
So, yeah, it's a great point. So let's say that really H2O was kind of that first big change. I perceive this as the second big change. This is the Beardsley Agreement. You know that. That was eventually upheld, right? In court.
yes.
They said, no, regardless, we're gonna, that's a legitimate
It's
agreement
an agreement.
between two landowners.
It wasn't to
For water
change a
right.
water right.
Right.
You know, it was originally shot down as an unnoticed change of water right by the water judge in Canyon City at the time. And it went to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court, no, it's just a private agreement, a rotation agreement between ditch owners.
Every 4 days.
Which is legal, it's still within the priority system. It's like 2 owners under the same ditch, they can say, I want water Tuesday, Wednesday, you get it Thursday, Friday. You know, that's just within that agreement, doesn't affect the priority system.
And did both of these guys agree and somebody else said, wait a minute, that's not right? Or did one of these take exception to that agreement? And then,
You mean in the H2O time?
no, well, in the Beardsley Agreement,
No, I mean, that was an agreement, they agreed.
both guys
And
agreed.
and as far as I know, that agreement followed along with succession of ownership. Right up until H2O came along and they kind of got all
So-
re-examined.
Okay, so yeah, that's the other thing. Once you open something, it opens it to everything, and it appears they got sucked into that, right?
Yeah, it got, I would say, misinterpreted initially, but I think it's still in effect, and it's between H2O and the other water right owners that are part of the agreement.
Rotation agreements can be changed anytime, by any party. I just got done with that with my attorney, so I know that. Like at any time, rancher or the other person.
Yeah, it depends how the contract is written, you know,
Oh,
maybe you have to give 5 years notice, or maybe both parties are required, you know. It's a private contract, it's whatever they say.
Didn't change any water rights.
No.
Yeah.
Mr. Prince, what do you think?
I think I learned a tremendous amount, but I still think I'm fogged over in terms of why are they doing this? I mean,
Excuse me, what?
I get that.
If I answered that, you tell me if I'd be totally off the mark. You just say, Flower, you're full of crap. My belief is the reason they want to do this is so they can open up the opportunity to sell water that they don't have the opportunity to sell right now.
And that's where I was going to go with this. That's what I think. It gives them greater control over the limited water we have in this valley. And I'm opposed to getting that because if it stays in the valley and it feeds your ranch and your ranch and your ranch, and it's augmented so that it can equitably be used by the farmers, I'm okay. But if I see it moving away from here, I've got serious issues. And am I just off base completely?
I think Upper Ark would argue they're keeping it here. I mean, they could use that conquistador water and they could run it down Grape Creek and sell it somewhere east.
Right.
They could ship it out of this valley tomorrow.
Right.
They would, I'm assuming they're gonna argue, we're doing this plan so we can use that water here, we paid for it with your tax money, we wanna use it here. I think the decision maybe you need to wrestle with is what economic future do you want here? How much potential development,
And that's,
potential for development do you want here?
right.
Because land is not going to be the limiting factor here, right? I mean, we got thousands of acres.
It's water supply and that red line.
Yeah. See, my big beef is these outside their plan right now. Any rancher there, any landowner is free to sell that water to anybody. And
Always
the
have.
cities and the way the state's set up, we got to battle big pockets. And so I'm simplistically looking at, forget Upper Ark. We have a co-op basically of people pooling their funds together to fight the big brother city to keep the water in the valley. Now that's what I think they're trying to argue. That they would support trying to put it in here. That doesn't mean that they couldn't augment it and sell water back and forth to other things as long as they keep us with water. That's what I care about. I don't want to see the valley dry up and be a dust bowl, you know, or dry land farming outfit. But somebody, I mean, money talks, and these ranchers up here, your dad included, mine too. I might even talk about it. At some point, they wanna got a lot of water here. Let's sell a little bit of it and retire.
Well, I know, I got mad at my dad and
Sure.
Custer County
And
Commissioners
so-
selling that to the neighborhood.
So that's the questions we need to argue with and understand what their real intents are. There's a lot of supposition, there's a lot of mystery that, because we don't understand from a transparency point of view what they are doing, and are they following through? Are they getting rich on it somehow? That's a lot of, rumor.
Well,
Or are they gonna sell it
well,
to somebody else? So I'm glad we're having a discussion so we understand the mechanics here, so that we can ask the right questions to the Upper Ark dudes.
Can Upper Ark sell that conquistador water out of the valley now?
They could lease it, they could sell the water rights to somebody else. It's valuable because it's already been changed.
Right.
That's why we don't have a ski area anymore, they can't make snow. Don't have the water rights for it.
And would this plan change automatically change the use of water?
The only change of water right they filed for was to allow the conquistador water to be used within this aug plan. Right now, it's only decreed to be used within their other aug plan, their Fremont Chaffey County aug plan. So it's barely a change of water right, and that's the only change of water right in here. The rest is a plan for augmentation and 2 exchanges. You know, I'll mention one other thing. What you're talking about is, you know, when Colorado Springs built that new pipeline from Pueblo Reservoir up north for their water and their 50-year time horizon, they don't need that pipeline right now or all of it. And so what it did though is open up the market for a water right in Fremont County to be bought by Security, or a water right in Custer County to be bought by Fountain, and now they have a means of delivery. And so,
Right.
you know, it changes the
Greater
market.
risk
It
having
changes the
somebody
market.
buy it.
Mhm. You now have,
Why?
one way I look at it, you now have a better market to sell your water to.
Right.
Not just people in this valley and down the Arkansas.
Right.
You now have that 500,000 people up in
With a
El
lot
Paso
more
County.
money, and
Yeah.
that supposedly is this co-op, I'll call it that, point, is they can help battle that, to stop that, where a rancher can't. Or a group of these ranchers, you'd have to go get voluntarily, they go
You could
find
do
out
land
stuff.
trusts,
Sure.
or you can do
Yeah,
other
yeah.
group kind
You
of
gotta,
things.
you gotta figure out how to do that. So
Yeah.
that's why we gotta get after them and find out what is their intent. Now, are they there to help, or are they there to do something else?
You know, sooner or later, someone else is gonna come knocking on the water rights door up here, and, you know, they're gonna have money, and then they're gonna go to
And-
the best water rights and cherry pick them.
And we care if we wanna do some directed, targeted development, the water, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, is all the water that can be augmented currently augmented? Are we gonna have to figure out how to, if we're gonna put in a industrial park with some additional water needed at the airport, or in town here, we're gonna have to find the water somewhere to do that.
And Upper Ark is
So-
providing that.
So that sort of limits our ability to direct some growth in this valley, and we can limit the growth however we want. That depends upon our zoning and our own control that we have to approve subdivision or PUDs or whatever.
As I say, it's kind of, that's your guys' decision. What do you want the future to be?
Right.
Water is just one aspect of it. Their plan would make it easier for you to build a bigger industrial park, or
Some
things like that.
Businesses at home have more houses that do home business, whatever.
Yeah.
If this blue line, if this application goes through, Upper Ark wouldn't have the right to come in and drill a well.
outside
Just
of the blue
because, no,
line.
inside the blue line.
They would be granted a permit by the state engineer, and it would be an augmented structure, quote, augmented structure under their plan. This
So
plan
they
is-
would have to follow the same thing as anybody else. We're
Oh,
gonna
sure,
drill a well
sure.
down here, but we're gonna augment it out of Conquistador water
Mhm.
too.
Sure.
Yeah, it would just be another, you know, it doesn't matter who owns the well or the land, it'd just be another augmented structure under this plan.
And so this plan wouldn't impact Upper Ark's ability one way or the other to move water out of the valley or into the
No.
valley.
It kind of,
Into the valley probably would. by exchange.
it might, you know, they filed for those exchanges,
Right.
and they would use those to legally bring water into the valley.
Right.
Physically, they're not bringing one more drop in.
Right.
Legally bring more in. This plan gives them a market to use the conquistador water here as opposed to somewhere else. So their argument of keeping some water in this valley is legitimate. It just comes with a growth price tag.
Right.
Depends on what the county wants.
Exactly.
And I think Upper Ark will say, that's up to you guys. We're not dealing with growth. We're dealing with water, just like you're not dealing with water, you're dealing with land. That's a legitimate argument. I
Well,
mean,
they're making it
stance.
possible.
Right.
They're making one aspect of growth possible and fairly easy.
Right. And people say, well, they're gonna make money. Okay, that's not a big hang-up with me. Somebody's gonna make money. It's other things.
You know, we talked about the county doesn't really have a water right in here, but you guys might think about things you'd want out of this. Maybe you'd want them to give some water to Round Mountain. Maybe you'd want them to give 10% of any proceeds back to the county. You know, non-water right issues, but if they want the county commissioner's support up here, here's what they need to do to get it.
Right.
And so you guys can do money things or other
And
trust
they could
kind of
come back
things.
with a raise in the mill levy too.
You have to think
You
about,
have to be careful what you're
Yeah.
bargaining for.
That being said, all things being equal, let's say the commissioners oppose this to wherever our standing stops. That's probably not gonna be enough to keep this plan from being approved by the water court, is it?
not if they push ahead, ignore the politics and push ahead. And that's why I say that's one strategy you may have, and the other strategy is it's going to, the argument may be that it's going to create more burdens for the county resources, financially, personnel-wise. Growth always brings more responsibilities, and somebody got to pay for that.
But on the flip side, they might just stop right there. All three county commissioners, no, they might not press it. And if they do, then you know how much money it's really about.
Well, and that comes to motive, we gotta understand their motive.
Well, you've been pretty quiet, Miss Jackie, you're
That's
patient to
'cause you,
sit in here.
that's 'cause you told us we couldn't speak.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's my understanding that the money that Upper Ark pools, makes, puts into the pot, that the theory is that that is to fight against outsiders coming in and buying the water. Do I have that right, or do I have that wrong?
That's what they
told us
said.
that.
Okay, so basically, what we have here is a suspicion that maybe that's not who they really are. Am I misunderstanding? There seems to be a suspicion that they aren't playing, that they have something under the table that they're trying to do, when they have said for eons that their whole point is to keep water in the valley, to keep somebody who has a water right from selling it to Colorado Springs. Am I totally off base here?
Well, I think it'd give that person an opportunity to sell the water to Upper Ark versus selling it to Colorado Springs.
With a trust that their whole mission is to keep it in the valley.
Even within this blue line, that guy could sell that water out of there.
I think that blue line gives Upper Ark more arguments against some other entity coming in and taking water out, but it doesn't necessarily stop it. You could have another
Yeah,
H2O,
yeah.
and as long as there's no injury to any other water rights, including Upper Ark's, it can still happen.
Right.
It just, Upper Ark just would have more of a argument if they had more of a presence here.
And they would also have more deeper pockets
That's right, to
to
hire the lawyers.
to maybe say
Yeah.
to Joe Blow that wants to sell, we'd like to keep it in the valley, we'll give you this much for it, Colorado Springs will give you that. Is that not the theory?
Or just that they have attorneys and they have their tax supported and they can fight more and longer and harder than just some individual rancher.
Cheaper.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
If that application's approved by the court, turn it around, I want to make sure. Is it going to change? My understanding right now is Upper Ark has 10 acre-feet in Deweese and 107 feet in Conquistador 1 and 2. If that's a fact, let's assume that it is. This is allowed by the courts. Does it change? Is there any change of water rights inherently in that document? Are they going to gain water rights just with this plan?
No. nothing else is
It's,
changing.
their water rights are what they are, unless they buy more, but right now, if that 117 acre feet is accurate, nothing changes because of this plan.
No, the majority of this is a plan to allow them to use their existing water rights in this area for augmentation purposes.
Okay.
And they could buy more.
They could buy more, and they will likely be in the market to do so they can say, see, Custer County, we're helping you where you need it,
Make
we're
sure.
allowing this guy up here to have a pond.
That's right.
You know, and sooner or later, somebody's gonna offer them some water rights on some creek, and
And they're gonna sooner or
they'll just
later
draw their line a little bigger.
And they'll
in
make
case.
another blue line to incorporate
Yeah.
it.
And
They
then,
have to go back to court
They
to
have
do
to go
that,
back to
but-
court and start all over again on that.
do you know what Upper Ark had to pay to get this plan filed in water court?
All I know is the application fee.
You know, the application took, what, 11 years, 2 years, 1 year? It
I
took
mean,
a
the
long
court
time.
charges a
It cost
fee
bunch.
to apply.
Do you know what that fee is?
For
Just
an
to-
aug
for that
plan and a change of water right, it's, gosh, I do this. You can look at it on the court's website. It's like $300.
Yeah, okay, I couldn't find it. I could.
It's not much, but what the real cost is developing the plan.
Yeah,
make sure you
their
get the-
attorney and their engineer have been
Yeah,
working
that
on
took
this
a
a
lot of money
while.
to do that.
Years.
Yeah.
So they're into
That's
a
the
bunch
cost,
of money. I just
yeah.
wondered what the court's fee was. Was it?
Oh, the
300,
court's
was it
only like
8,000,
300 some
yeah,
bucks.
Shoot, I can
Yeah.
file on, I had to file for my pond and my, my springs.
Yeah, whether you're augmenting one little exempt well or you're augmenting the
No, it's the
whole
same.
half of Custer
It's
County,
the same.
the application fee is the same.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's different fees for if it's an aug plan versus a change of water right versus a new water right versus a storage right. There's different fees, but this is about $300.
Did they talk storage right? I thought I saw something in there.
They just mention the Conquistador one, but they don't, they
Not additional storage rights.
No, it would say right here, that's why I highlighted
Okay.
it. Aug plan, change of water right, that's to allow the Conquistador rights to be used in
For something
this
besides
area.
ag.
And then the right of exchange to bring water up from the Arkansas. But no,
which does beg the question.
No storage.
Because there's no
No storage,
place to
no
build a
change.
storage, but why didn't they file over here to grab some and put a storage in somewhere else?
they just don't have it yet.
Maybe they will.
You know, ideally, they would probably like storage at the head of Texas Creek.
Sure.
And then they could augment all of Texas Creek. That's kind of eluded them all these
Right.
years.
They thought they had it once and
Yeah.
went
and-
south on them.
Yeah, and you can pick, if they had a reservoir right here, they could go all the way down to the
Sure.
Arkansas. And they probably would have some creeks in priority, and they may even, got a reservoir here, it may be physically easy and legally to dig a ditch to the next
Actually,
creek.
there's a
Ditch
bunch
to the next
that,
creek.
there are a bunch that are old in there from
So you
the
could,
1890s.
yeah, so you could have one
Cut Hill is a
reservoir,
good example
and you
of a
could
bust
supply several creeks
Yeah.
with some feeder ditches.
That's what caused that.
I didn't know that.
Area 2 is Oak Creek going down into Fremont County. We've made it clear from the beginning, we're only concerned about anything south of the county line. We don't want to get into these.
Fremont County,
Or,
yeah.
south of our county line. So into Fremont County, obviously Fremont County Road and Bridge is pumping water out of this drainage for their road and bridge operations.
That's why they
And
wanted to.
initially, they said, well, wait a minute, you're gonna interfere with that. We said only from the Custer County line upstream.
Yeah, Fremont County has a specific point of diversion where they park their truck and suck some water out of the creek. And there's a couple rights down below that they can only do it when those rights down below are satisfied. Ultimately, there is a kind of a trade deal that could happen to make it work, but it really
That doesn't
not
injure
affecting
anybody
Right.
up here at all.
Yeah.
Would it affect us guys in this area?
No, it's just,
If they augment up here, are they augmenting Oak Creek, or are they going clear back to Grape Creek to augment?
I assume this area too is just an area they can't augment now, but maybe it's like that Cherry Creek situation. Excuse me, maybe they could augment when conditions are right, like those rights down on Oak Creek are
I
satisfied.
think
Somebody
that's
could have a
what- That's sort of
pond.
what I think they said the other day when we were
I think
there.
that's-
They were
it's kinda like
concerned
that.
about that area.
no lag depletion, no lag timing of depletion, kind of Cherry Creek thing is what that would be. But replacement to Oak Creek would be at the Arkansas River.
Right.
Okay, not up somewhere.
Yeah, they could make a deal with the city of Florence, and city of Florence could make a deal with Rockvale, if you know water rights. So they could get up as high as Rockvale, and that's
Down below.
right below. Rockvale has a water right below this one. So there's a way Upper Ark could take care of these guys by making a deal with those two entities and handling it all on the Arkansas. You know, it's all.
Would never come back up.
You would
to
never
this
know.
range.
You would never know.
So we're paying you for some consult time. What would you tell us? I think you already have, as county commissioners, where our concern really lies. The potential for growth.
Yeah, I think that's, my message to you is this plan can make it, at least water supply, can make it convenient for development. It makes it easier. Some developer doesn't have to go buy some irrigation right, changing them itself.
And
It's
compete
already
with the
sitting
city.
there available for them. So it makes that easy. It's not the only aspect of development, but water's a big one. My message is that's what this is gonna do, and how much of that do you like?
Okay.
Or how much your citizens want. If they truly understand this,
Which I personally don't think they do, and therein lies one of our problems.
sure, you've got some work to do there. It's not like anybody's sucking water out of this valley. And in fact, it's creating a need to keep some existing water in the valley. And it is kind of getting a new big brother that's gonna help rough up anybody else who comes here. They're gonna keep them honest, just like they did with H2O.
Yeah, they
They're-
fought the H2O pretty hard.
Yeah, and now they're gonna have more arguments, say, we got this aug
They got
plan, we
vested
got all these things up here. If you wanna take water out of this valley, it's
Gotta
gotta be
work.
squeaky clean. So there's benefits to them coming here. It's just, what do your constituents want?
I don't know the history of it, but I know a set of commissioners about whenever it happened, saw that they haven't been part of it, but they knew that there was a need to be a member because that was eventually probably an issue with what the county could be in the future. So
Yeah, that goes back, I don't know
That
when
goes
Upper
back.
Ark first,
Yeah, it goes back when they first set up back in the 70s.
I'm guessing the reason they did that was for some sort of protection.
That's why we're members, right?
So
Yeah.
following that line of thought, if let's say we weren't members of Upper Ark,
You'd be on your own.
we'd be on our own and we'd fight off the wolves
Yeah,
how
raise
best we
the
could.
The individuals would be out there on their own.
Which I think is gonna be Upper Ark's number one argument is we're here to help you fight.
Sure.
We're here to serve as a buffer between you and the rest of the world. Because we got engineers, support staff, and.
Right, and that's where we
attorneys.
gotta grill them, and we gotta get them on a communications bandwagon to make sure everybody understands. Because it is a mystery, everybody said, well, it's gonna hurt me, they're gonna take my water.
Yeah,
We gotta understand what the big picture is.
yeah, you need some
And
of
get
that understanding.
going all the time. It's our job to make sure the county is helping our citizens.
And I think your citizens would like the idea of a protector, as long as they didn't hurt them somehow. But
Right
then,
now, the
then
only
there's
hurt is
the,
a half a mil levy that we're already paying for something we
Yeah.
haven't gotten, had the need to have happen yet.
so they might like that, but they may not like the growth aspect that comes along with it.
That's what we're dealing with now.
Potentially.
with our
Could
own
come,
citizens.
right.
Potential that comes
Yeah,
along
that's
with
potential
it.
growth, yeah.
Uncontrolled growth.
Yeah, and that's,
That ain't gonna happen,
that's.
as long as we have a zoning and planning office.
So the water court's gonna look at all this. Will it get to the water court or will it be handled with the referee?
Very few cases go to trial. Very few. I doubt this one would because the groundwork has already been laid in this blanket aug plan and others across the state. And as long as, Upper Ark's gonna look at all these statement of oppositions, one individually, one at a time, and say, what's your problem? you know, if it's John Doe up here, he says, you're gonna take my water. They're gonna go to him and say, no, we're not, we're just, you know.
Which I think they will
Or
do a
not.
very good job of that.
Yeah, and they gotta go through, it's the applicant's burden to try to settle with opposers.
Sure.
And all the burden is on the applicant for quite a while in the water court process, till you get closer, till you have a year, or optionally a year and a half in front of the referee. And that's an informal process as far as the court goes. And so they have that amount of time to work with opposers, find out what the problems are, or the concerns are, and work them out. And they'll go one by one, and as they get agreement, they'll work with opposers, find out what the problems are, or the concerns are, and work them out. And they'll go one by one, and as they get agreement, they'll both sign a stipulation. It gets filed with the court, usually a draft decree is attached, and they'll go down the list. And if they get everybody, then the court just gives them a decree. If there's a few hanging on and they can't deal with it after a year and a half, the court will set it for a trial. That usually is kind of a 2-year process these days with the court schedule. And sooner or later, opposers have to show up and demonstrate injury. That's when the burden starts to shift to opposers to prove their case.
Right.
And ultimately, you make your arguments in front of the judge.
Mardell's getting ready to retire. What's that gonna do to the process for us, for this, not for other AUG plans? Anything, new referee comes on board, new water clerk, not a big deal?
Well, she didn't think of me when she decided to retire, I know that.
Were you a pain in her side?
No. I mean, we've worked together since 1990.
Wow.
She's brilliant, I think.
Wow.
But no, you know, theoretically, she's already training a new person. Theoretically, it shouldn't change a thing, other than if this person doesn't have much experience, it may have some effects that things take a little longer. But she can go to the judge and confer with the judge. So
Is there a public date? Has a date been made public? See you guys, thank you. Have a good evening. Public date
for
for her retirement?
the end of March.
End of March. I've heard all kinds of things.
No, it's definitely the end of
Okay.
March. Whatever the last working day in March
Wow.
is.
Okay.
Moving to Florida.
Wow. I've never met her, so I've just talked to her.
She's really a good person. Very helpful.
Closing
Oh, yeah,
questions, Commissioner Prince?
I make a closing comment. I feel a lot better about the plan than I did before. About the effects of the plan on the county in terms of ultimately, it'll enhance the potential for growth, but that's something we can control beyond that.
Right.
I'll go back to what started this entire thing with me, I won't speak for anybody else. I really dislike this behind-the-back filing with the court, this no walk plan. We had no idea. The Custer County, 2 people on it, neither of them even knew it was being submitted.
3.
They probably knew.
No?
2 of the 3.
Bob knew.
Bob knew.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was thinking other
Right.
than Bob. The other 2, you and
Bill Donnelly.
Mr. Donnelly, yeah.
Mr. Donnelly states publicly he had no idea they were
I
getting ready.
find that hard to believe because I've known her for a year and a half.
Personally,
And I don't go to their meetings.
Yeah. Well, he stated publicly he had no idea that they were going to make a motion to file this application. I think he knew they'd been working.
Oh, yeah, he's looking at the bills to the engineer and the attorney, and
He's not doing his
there's
job as a
discussion,
resident.
yeah. I would be, you'd have to
Hard-pressed,
convince
huh?
me that you knew nothing.
Yeah.
You know, but just personal opinion, those representatives or Terry Skangas should have been up here having public meetings saying, you know, you're part of our district, we'd like to do something for you, here's what we do elsewhere,
And
what do you
that's
guys
our-
think of
And
it?
that's
And
our
that's-
rep's job to make sure that happens.
That's what we called them on about.
They didn't do
Sure,
And they
it.
it's
said, look,
legitimate.
Terry said this in that public meeting, he said, look, we tried that in 95, and your citizens opposed us every step of the way, so we decided not to go that route. We decided to go straight to the
That
water
was a
court.
wrong call.
Well, yeah.
Didn't do anything illegal, obviously.
No.
But he just said, we got a dose of what that would probably have led to based on what happened before. That's what he told us in that public meeting,
So
so.
it's because there was a mystery, nobody explained it.
Yeah.
And they-
So-
But that's
They
what
need to do
we,
a better PR job, and that's something we gotta talk to them about tomorrow.
Water is so complicated, and water aug plans are a big mystery to
Yeah,
the,
sounds
to the
magic, doesn't it?
citizenry.
Yeah, we'll just get water out of.
So I totally understand that the whole citizenry came out and screamed.
Yeah,
They didn't know any better,
No clue.
and they
You see that
still
public?
don't.
that's right.
Yeah.
I
That's why
didn't
the
until
press is
today.
here.
yeah.
You know what, that strategy you just described that they took kind of tells one they chose to, or maybe are choosing to fight
Fight
any
the battle.
politics that come along.
As they come.
So you guys may have a rougher job trying to kill it if that's the way you want to go than your predecessors did.
We don't know that. I don't think we're in a mind that we think it's right to kill it until we understand it, and this has helped a bunch to me.
But yeah, you can think about that, you can think about what you want to get out of it as a county.
Yeah, that's a
and,
good point. I hadn't thought about any bargaining
Financially, or
chips.
maybe they need to pay for 2 employees here to help track, you know, whatever effects
Get
there are,
a
things like
communicator in
that.
here and do the PR for us.
One of the things for me, and I won't speak again for anybody else, I lack trust in the management of the Arkansas. I don't believe that they're telling us the truth. I think there's behind the back. That's the perception I have. And until there's a trust, I just have to oversee whatever they do and try and find out what are you really trying to do here? Because I don't trust you. I mean, you said exactly right. Well, you're the guardians. Do I trust you?
See, Jay's got a real good point, because why didn't Donnelly know? Were they hiding it from him, or was he just being
Yeah,
stupid, or does he have his own agenda?
Yeah,
So we gotta work on it.
That's straight deceitful, and I'd take it a step farther, I wouldn't be like, well, you gotta earn my trust, I mean, you already broke it.
Yeah,
So
right.
now I'm really gonna hover it.
Can you send us a statement,
I don't
an
know.
invoice?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Where do I just?
And your time ended a half an hour ago.
Yeah, by the way, we just been chatting.